What's going on there, YouTube? And welcome back to another comic book video. This is the channel where we sit down and cover different comic book stories from different comic book companies. Today, we're going to jump back over to Marvel Comics and continue our coverage over the Ultimate Marvel Universe. In this video right here, we're going to cover Ultimates Volume 2 by Johnathan Hickman. In this video right here, we watch Johnathan Hickman wrap up almost everything he built in Ultimates Volume 1 and also Ultimate Hawkeye. Remember, Nick Fury and the Ultimates are dealing with two problems in the world right now. The first one is the Maker, aka Reed Richards. And the second problem is the superhumans who got rid of a country called Seer in our last video, who are now calling their new country Tien. And so now Nick Fury and the Ultimates must find a way to take care of both threats in the world. So if you do like today's comic book video, please hit that like button down below and also subscribe to the channel for more content to come in the near future. Also, any suggestions on books I should read, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But I do hope you enjoy today's video. So to begin this video, we pick up with Zorn with an X, because there are two Zorn characters in this universe. The other one starts with a Z. But we see the other Zorn with an X telling one of his people, the Oracle, that they need to get ready to welcome the world to heaven. They consider their city they have built as heaven. But we see them preparing to greet some Americans. Of course, that means Nick Fury and some members of the Ultimate. This leads us a few hours ago, where we see some of the Ultimates talking about the two Zorns in the cities they have built. This is more of a review, where if you remember from our Hawkeye video and Volume 1 of the Ultimates by Johnathan Hickman video, that the country that was known as Seer had decided to make their own superhumans, which of course it led to them making their own formula to make these superhumans. The problem is that it led to the superhumans taking over the country and forming two cities as their own country that is being led by the Zorn brothers. Each city is controlled by one of the Zorns. Also, they took the formula and called it the Source to bring in more people to their cause. But S.H.I.E.L.D.'s goal is to inform them about Reed Richards, who is going by the name the Maker, and his children, and hopefully get help to fight against them. With that being said, both Zorns have the ability to read other people's mind. So of course, both the brothers read the mind of Nick Fury, where they find out why he is here for. Of course, this leads to a disagreement about the topic, where one brother disagrees to help Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. because he knows that Nick Fury is planning to have both parties go against each other in a big war to hopefully kill both of them off, while the other brother is down to help Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. out. He tells Oracle to use his powers as a way to send a message over to the city that is controlled by the Maker, aka Reed Richards. Of course, this leads to a very big moment, because you have Oracle, who is able to use his powers as a way to appear in front of people as this big head to send a message, where of course he is able to access the city. Now the Maker tells us that any contact from the outside world shouldn't be able to talk to them while being in the city. Something else to mention is that the city is an AI system, but the city realized that Oracle has powers, which means he is not using technology. It learns the origin of Oracle, and you have the Maker decide it is time for him to make a move. So he uses the power of the city to take control of the mind of Oracle so he can send a message, which of course is him saying that because Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. had disregarded his peace treaty, he's now coming after them, but also coming after the Zorn brothers and their people. Also, with the Maker taking over the body of Oracle, Oracle ends up dying. Then we learn something else is going to happen because above the city, the Hulk is about to drop down on the city. If you remember, the Hulk was sent away to somewhere else in our Ultimate Hawkeye video. Well, we come to find out that he was sent to the Himalayas, where of course, if you remember way back in our Ultimate Hulk vs. Wolverine video, he went there to hide, but also when Wolverine found him, he was this peaceful being. Like Bruce was able to control the Hulk, we're seeing the same thing again, but he is greeted by Agent Flume. I want to say it's Flume. Now, Agent Flume lets us know that the president is tired of waiting on Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. to handle both the Zorn brothers situation and the Maker situation. So his plan is to get rid of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Ultimates, and Nick Fury. But Flume is trying to help the president take down the Maker. So Flume's idea is to get the Hulk and send him in. Remember, the Hulk never attacked the city. Now at first, Hulk says no, but his answer changed when Flume says that the American government is holding on to Betty Ross. Because remember, in this universe, she is She-Hulk. He said they are holding on to her and testing on her to reproduce a Hulk. So Agent Flume was able to convince the Hulk to go and attack the city. Remember, this is the first time the Hulk has attacked the city, where of course the children of the city never met the Hulk, nor know anything about him. So with that happening, they're sending out a ton of different people to hopefully beat him before he can cause some major damage. Only for him to stop when he is confronted by the Maker, where you have the Maker showing no signs of being scared and actually asks the Hulk what in the world he is doing here. Getting back over to the country of Tien that's being run by the two Zorn brothers, we see Nick Fury and the Ultimates trying their best to convince Zorn with an X to leave the city before the children of the Maker arrive to destroy the area. Because with Zorn making Oracle send that message that was heard by the Maker is sending out an army of his children to wipe out Tien. Except this is the moment where you have Zorn with an X tell everyone that the children won't even make it to his city because his brother with a Z is really powerful, and this includes all of the citizens of Tien because they all have powers as well. We then see the president meeting up with some of his board members, but this is the moment that changes everything for this book, because we see him meeting up with Congress about his new plan to take down the Maker in the city. This plan begins instantly because we see Spider-Woman and Captain Britain chilling in the Triskelion, minding their own business. Well, more of Captain Britain being annoying towards Spider-Woman. But right before she goes off on him, that is when they are hit with some kind of chemical gas that knocks both of them out. We see some US soldiers moving in to grab them after they were knocked out by the gas. After that, this is where we learn about the Winter Protocol. We learn this when we see Thor and Tony Stark working on something big that could help them win this war against the city and Reed Richards. Except while they are working on this project, that is when they are attacked by some soldiers. Of course, they are there to bring them in. The Winter Protocol is a thing where the president pulls the plug on S.H.I.E.L.D., the Ultimates, and Nick Fury. Bring them in and they stay locked up until they are done with whatever situation. To close on chapter 2 of this video, we get two settings at the same time. One being the president talking about his plans to handle the Maker in the city. At the same time, we see the Maker talking to the Hulk and wondering why he is helping a country that has used him so many times but also hates him too. Hulk tells him how the government is holding on to Betty, who is She-Hulk in this universe. Now, you have Reed talking to the Hulk to convince him that he got tricked once again. They are never going to give the Hulk Betty. While the Maker says that is when we learn the president's plan to handle the Maker. His plan was to fire all of America's nuke at the city, hoping that it will finally be the key, and of course the Maker and the Hulk see the missiles coming, letting Hulk know once again he was being used. Focusing back on Nick Fury, Monica Chang, and Hawkeye, we see them leaving the city of Tien because they want to watch the big battle between the children of the Maker and the citizens of Tien. But we also learn that they are worried about what has happened back home with the rest of the Ultimates and the Triskelion, because they're unable to get in contact with them, and so they have an idea that things are not okay back at home. Back at the Triskelion, we see Agent Flum freaking out because he got word about two Ultimates have not been captured, which of course those two are Thor and Tony Stark, who are fighting against the soldiers that were sent to grab them. This fight is short-lived because these two know how to fight, but after the fight, Tony Stark learns about the Winter Protocol meaning and learns that basically the Ultimates are now outlaws in their own country. But before Tony Stark and Thor leave, Thor sees that Tony's nose is bleeding, meaning that something is seriously wrong with Tony Stark. Shifting back to Nick Fury, Monica Chang, and Hawkeye, we see them watching the fight between some of the children and some of the people from Tien, where of course the children are adapting because where they are from, inside the dome, inside the city, time moves differently. Years are passing by at a faster rate, and so they have technology to help them adapt to their battle against the people of Tien. Well, until we see Zorn with an X take off his mask, where we see him use his powers to create a black hole. Now, a lot of folks say this is the moment where he died, but we see him take out a chunk of the children of the Maker. Back at the city, we see Reed Richards talking to the Hulk, but also his children, where he tells them to bring out a special child, a child that was never given a name. And of course, the reason why, because this child was supposed to represent the idea of death, be the first to represent it. But he gives this young boy a seed to take with him, teleports the boy over to Washington, D.C., where of course you have the president and the people of Congress there, where we see this child blow up the entire city of Washington, D.C., killing everyone in the city. We then pick up with Senator Howard, who is like the energy secretary. The reason why this is so important, thanks to Reed Richards, aka the Maker, recent attack in Washington, D.C., he had killed so many people that when it comes to the chain of who becomes the president after the president had died, it had fallen down to Senator Howard. That is how many people who were in the chain to become president had died. War Machine has to come to get him and make him the president of the United States of America. Then we get to jump back a minute before Reed Richards has sent in the child to blow up Washington, D.C. we see that there were people just minding their business, but of course they were caught in the blast. And so the death total is high, which is pretty obvious. But also we see that some astronauts in space can see the explosion as well, letting us know how big the explosion was. But getting back over to the Triskelion, with the Winter Protocol removing Nick Fury from being in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D., now Agent Flume is in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. With that happening, we learn from Nick Fury how much of a snake Agent Flume is, meaning that maybe he had a hand in the activation of the Winter Protocol. But we see Nick Fury, Monica Chang, Falcon, and Hawkeye arrive on the helicarrier, only to be told that Agent Flume is in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. now. He orders S.H.I.E.L.D. agents to capture Nick Fury and them. Now, of course, these guys don't get taken in that easily, because as soon as he heard about the fact they were supposed to be captured, all of them jumped off the helicarrier to get away. Picking up with Thor and Tony Stark, we see that they are also still on the run, except we see Tony talking to a younger version of himself that of course is just his imagination in his own head. He is confronted by Thor, where you have Thor wondering what is their next move. You have Tony tell Thor that he has a plan in mind, but at first they need to see someone. Really, he needs to see a doctor, to be more exact, because something is really wrong with Tony Stark. Now we do see Monica Chang, Hawkeye, and Falcon breaking out of a container in California. With that happening, of course, they are easily located by S.H.I.E.L.D., which we can see back at the Triskelion. Agent Flume and S.H.I.E.L.D. are about to send in a team to get them. But before we move on, we learn that some of S.H.I.E.L.D. facilities have shut down in Texas. With that happening, apparently this is a sign that S.H.I.E.L.D. could be losing another state. But skipping over to the Baxter building, we don't only get a brief return of Susan Storm, who we have not seen since the Ultimate Doom trilogy, but we also see she is doing scans on Tony Stark, where we learn that Tony Stark's brain cancer has returned. And with its return, of course, now Tony Stark could possibly die again. But you have Tony tell Susan not to mention his brain cancer to anyone. But after he tells her that, this leads into him telling her about the return of Reed Richards and how he was the one who blew a huge chunk of Washington DC in the air. Then at the end of the 4th chapter, 2 things happen. The first being that you have the Maker tell the city to prepare itself for any attack, which he reveals a hidden defense plan to help the city evolve. But at the same time, in the ruins of Asgard, we see something coming out of the room with no doors. We see the return of Modi, the son of Thor. The next day, we see Tony Stark calling up someone else we have not seen in a small bit of time, and that would be Carol Danvers. Remember, she was the one running S.H.I.E.L.D. but lost it to Nick Fury. After that, she has kind of been missing in comics. But something else to point out is that she used to date Tony Stark, and we see him trying to call her to ask her for a favor that can help him get the S.H.I.E.L.D. and the American government off his back, but also help him take down Reed Richards. Getting back to Monica Chang, Hawkeye, and Falcon, we see them arrive at a facility Nick Fury had hidden from the entire world. This is WCOS, which is also known as West Coast Operational Security, where we meet up with Hugo Lopez, a scientist that was secretly working for Nick Fury, where he had been working on a secret project, and that project was to create a West Coast Ultimates team, more people with certain abilities. So Monica Chang's plan is to awaken the subjects and use them to, one, help Nick Fury, but also take down Agent Flume. That is when they come to find out that they have been found and under attack by shields, and now the test subjects cannot be let out of their test containers. At the Oval Office, we see the new president, President Howard. He is already thinking that Agent Flume is a failure, that he wants to know why they have SHIELD agents chasing down 3 Ultimates when they should be focusing on the Maker. But this is where we learn that Texas decide to stop being part of America and form their own country once again. We actually see the meeting between members of Congress of the new Republic of Texas, where they are wondering about the defense, money, and any other problems. Also, we learn that they have more shield bases than any other state. They could buy all of them, but the banks are frozen. That is when we see Modi, the son of Thor, as an adult now, handing over gold that could help Congress with all of their problems. Skipping back to Tony and Thor, we see them meeting up with Carol Danvers, where she was able to give what Tony wanted, which was to be able to sit down and have a meeting with the president. The only catch is that he has to give himself in and come in under arrest. But this is him hoping that he can begin his plan to take down the Maker, aka Reed Richards. But before we can see him talking to the president, we actually had to see the fall of Falcon, Monica Chang, and Hawkeye as they fight against SHIELD agents and a team of giant men, where of course at first they are able to hold their own against these guys, but at the end of the fight it was just too much for them to handle, and so it leads to them all being captured. But we can now see what Tony's big plan is when it comes to taking down Reed Richards. We see him meeting up with the president and show the president that his plan involves a toy version of War Machine. Now this toy is honestly pretty cool, what it will do. But if Tony's plan works, then the new president has to let all of the Ultimates go free, where of course the president does agree to the plan. With him agreeing to the plan, it leads into the beginning of the plan, that the American government hands Tony over to Reed as a peace treaty, because something to point out is that Reed hates Tony, because Tony always tried to paint a picture that he was smarter than Reed. In reality, he was not. Always gave Reed a hard time, and so giving Reed Tony, it gives the chance for Reed to do whatever he likes to Tony. This is where we learn that the child version of Tony we saw earlier was actually an AI, where you had this AI become friends with the city, the AI that Reed Richard had built. This is very important, because when Reed tries to call on the city to get rid of Tony, that is when he sees a giant-sized war machine appear, letting us know the two AIs have formed together, but also the city has turned against Reed, and so have the children. Remember, Reed made this city to be a perfect world, but in recent events, he has shown the opposite nature of a perfect world. Blowing up Washington, D.C., hiding defense plans from the city, and creating a child to represent death. All of this is the opposite of what he told the city and the children they were building. This leads into us seeing Reed Richards turning Hulk into a giant version of himself to fight against Anthony, the AI that looks like the younger version of Tony. Also hoping the Hulk will be enough to win back his city. But we also learn that Tony has a second plan, to bring down the defense to let someone else come in to help take down the city, but also get revenge. And you would think I'm talking about Thor, but in reality, I'm really talking about Susan Storm really. Because remember, Her and Reed Richards used to date in our earlier Ultimate Marvel videos, so when she found out what Reed Richards did, she was more than down to help take him down. So we see her and Thor just wreak havoc and being able to take down both the Hulk and Reed Richards and save the day. Finally, to close on this book, but build up to the big event we are going to cover very soon, we see Captain America talking to a shop owner about him finally going back home after hearing what had happened in America. This is all leading into Divided We Fall, this big Ultimate Marvel event that was done in all the Ultimate titles. So, this is where we're going to end today's video. So please hit that like button down below and also subscribe to the channel for more content to come in the near future. Also, any suggestions on books I should read, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.